Hey everyone, Steve here from 11ish, a channel where we talk about lucrative investment strategies and opportunities based on the requests from the 11ish collective. Airbnb is finally going public and I am incredibly excited. You know, as far as this year goes, where IPOs are concerned, there are three public companies now that I am super excited about. Unity is one of them. There's another one that I can't really talk about due to conflict of interest, but Airbnb is the third one I am super excited about. A lot of these news outlets, all they're talking about is the valuation, how exciting it is, how valuable these companies are. But in this video, I always reel it in. We're gonna be super down to earth. We're gonna talk about the value proposition, why Airbnb is a unique business value that can make us a lot of money. And then we're gonna talk about the risks, why there's always risks in any investments you make, and what are they in this particular investment. And lastly, I'm going to talk to you about my perspective about how I'm treating this investment opportunity. So if this is the type of content you like, if this is the type of content you've been looking for, please help me grow my channel by hitting that like button, and let's get started. Airbnb, the company who's founded by the entrepreneurial spirit that I can only dream of. By the way, if you're curious, check out how I made these podcasts specific for Airbnb. The stories for the founders and how they created this business and their journey is incredibly fascinating. I highly recommend it. This is the company that made couchsurfing culturally acceptable. This is the company that has made millions of locations available to us that were essentially private before Airbnb. And now we have these new places to travel to, stay in, and enjoy. All built on a little bit of money and a glorified version of a social contract that I get to sleep at your place if I promise not to fajita. Of course, it's a little bit more complicated than that, but it gave us opportunities to stay at high rises 2 blocks away from Times Square. It gives me opportunities to stay, 3 blocks away from the London Egg, living on top of a pub at 25 bucks a day. That is absolutely amazing. If you want to bum it, you can bum it, but you're bumming it in the city center. But if you want to posh it up, live like a king, where, otherwise you'd be spending $500-600 at a fancy hotel in a location that is not even as good. Airbnb has done a great job creating this user experience where you can choose by budget, and the experience is transparent enough for you to figure out exactly what you're going to get and actually enjoy the experience at the end. This is why I love Airbnb as a business. And their competition, barely there. There are niche competitions, of course, 100%, but they're barely there. If you want to book something that's super high end, there are, equivalent alternatives that does just that, right? But if you're talking about something holistic, something trusted with a lot of reviews, Airbnb is it. And by the way, this is internationally, right? This is internationally accepted. So essentially this is Uber, but a much more interesting business vertical. Airbnb has been growing leaps and bounds and making a shit ton of money, rightfully so. Of course, COVID has kind of, screwed it up a little bit, but this is essentially a unique experience hotel industry. And we know that they're tackling even more unique experiences by offering unique experiences on top of your booking, right? So for example, when I was booking into New York, the app was telling me they have experiences of learning how to box with a world champion. It was also showing me, do I want to learn stand-up comedy with a local? Those are fascinating things to be offering people who are traveling and exploring. And I think that's the right demographic, right? You're booking something that's slightly uncertain because of the excitement. Why not just supplement it with something additionally unique? All of these experiences, whether it's booking a place to stay versus something that you want to do as an experience, all of these are vetted opportunities for you to book. And they're relatively cheap. I mean, I can't say this enough. It's a beautiful business model. Now, the biggest risk, in my opinion, is very similar to Uber. Regulations are going to kick in. Because they're messing around with multi-billion-dollar hotel industries, they're of course going to pay cities to fight back. And we already see this all over the place. We don't know exactly how much it's going to affect this industry because frankly, how regulations play out is not my expertise. We see that the city is basically trying to curtail the amount of rentals available through Airbnb. I mean, one of my own places is preventing Airbnb as a whole. And I have a place in downtown Silicon Valley, right? So I can see that being problematic. But this also brings up to the second risk and concern, which is that out of the ton of places that I booked off of Airbnb, I reckon half of them were technically not allowed. You'd be surprised how many times I book something, I show up to a locked door. And then they send me an address telling me, oh, it's actually a different place that is a few blocks away. Just walk over. You'd be very surprised how often that happens. Now, me personally as a traveler, I enjoyed the experience because ultimately I get to stay exactly around the area that I wanted so that everything's walking distance, but it's clearly sketchy, right? So in a way, I'm saying that the second risk, Airbnb, in my opinion, might be a kind of a walking lawsuit. The third risk I want to highlight is, in fact, what I mentioned in every single video these days. The market is frothy as fajita. And it's not just me, right? You have NYU professors on their own YouTube channels talking about the same thing. I'm not making this stuff up, guys. I'm just thinking like a professional economist at this point. Even though they've been talking about, the market needing an adjustment for 2-3 years now, I've just started feeling this way this year. So, I mean, we've all been making money probably in the last 2-3 years, but right now I'm starting to taper back. So if you invest in a frothy market, yeah, you'll have an opportunity to make a lot more money because the market is a lot more volatile. But at the same time, you might be part of the adjustment, right? So it depends on how risk averse you are. For me, I'm so excited about this opportunity that I'm going to be putting a little bit of money in this. Because ultimately, if we're talking about a 4 to 5 year investment, anything that's adjusted now, that's going to be not a big deal. Because that gap is going to be covered in 4 to 5 years. I mean, a recession cycle is about that. The biggest caveat here is that you should be okay with seeing money lost, even though the business value will bring the money back and more. And you should be okay with tying up your asset like this. If you're not, I recommend that you either invest a little or not at all. And the last risk I want to mention is that I don't think any of us are fully aware of how COVID is going to play out, right? There's a recent study in South Korea that says COVID can transmit 20 feet away from you. That is news, and it is making it sound a lot more scarier than before, in my opinion. And so I'm not really sure how that's going to play out for anything, frankly. So if COVID keeps holding down the fort, yeah, I'm not really sure how that's going to affect this market overall, but I think it will most likely be in a negative way. But at least, frankly, it'll be safer than investing in restaurants, right? So, because the equivalent of hotels, they'll never go away. The equivalent of small businesses, which this essentially is a platform for, that'll never go away. All right, guys, that's all I want to talk about in this video. I am super excited about this opportunity. Me personally, if this was a 2-year-old public company, I'd probably be investing in probably 4x what I would invest in now. But because this is a brand new IPO and the market is frothy, it's doubly frothy in my opinion. So it is what it is. I'm going to be watching my investment a little bit closer, try to avoid the drop, and then also perhaps average down as needed. But I have no problem tying up my assets right now because I think Airbnb is just that good of an investment. Is it 100K kind of good? I don't think so yet, but it is good enough for me to put money in as a brand new IPO, even though I usually don't do this. I'd love to hear from you, see what your opinions are around this. How are you treating this investment? What do you think about Airbnb? And if you have anything else that you'd like me to talk about, let me know. I know some of you have already hit me up when I was doing that DoorDash video, so I'm definitely looking into those as well. Thanks for watching, and I look forward to working with you next time.